Quentin Mayo formerly of NBC Sports Washington says the Sixers are one of the teams, and then Barry Bonds adds that Sixers are one of the teams. So it's all kinds of rumors going on here, a bunch of check marks confirming each other. So we'll see what's real and what isn't real. I do know that I listened to podcasts, in the last couple of days, and Keith, our boy Keith, it seems like he kind of has some, a relatively high chance of Lillard getting traded to the Sixers. I'm curious what you think about Lillard getting traded to the Sixers. I'll tell you what I think after you go.
I mean, I saw Kevin O'Connor of the Ringer report that the Sixers are still aggressively pursuing Dame Lillard, and they should, as they should, because in my opinion, Austin, a Dame Lillard Joel Embiid pairing puts them back at the top of the East. Yeah. Because between Lillard's ability to create his own look, have the guts to take those shots late in the fourth quarter, that changes everything. And then combining obviously with the immense domination of what Embiid does on a nightly basis. Do I think the Sixers trade for him? I'm going to give them a 25% chance, and here's why. Because Lillard is frustrated in Portland, and rightfully so. They really haven't become close to a championship. The closest they got was 2019 when they made the Western Conference Finals, but they were then swept by a Kevin Durant-less Golden State Warrior team.
They really weren't even that close then.
Yeah, they really weren't even that close. But the point is, that's the closest that they've gotten.
Yeah.
And I mean, what's crazy is I think the Blazers in all those games, Austin, had a double-digit lead, and they just couldn't hold on to it. So.
They would fit right in with the Sixers then. It's a perfect match.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, he really would. He would fit here perfectly. So I look at Lillard, and but I mean, here's the thing though. This dude has remained absolutely 100% loyal to the Trailblazers, and I feel like he's given them chance after chance after chance. He's kind of like it feels like to me that he'd be willing to go out on a limb and give this team kind of one more run or something. And then next summer, we're sitting here in July of 2022, having this same conversation again. And then I would buy into it a little bit more. I would buy into Dame leaving Portland a bit more, because O'Connor even did report that team executives don't believe the Blazers trade him. They're going to keep him and try again. So that's always my big thing when it comes to Lillard. The man has been loyal to Portland his entire career. So I feel like he saw what Giannis did in Milwaukee. He stayed with the Bucks, won a title. Maybe he's thinking he can do the same thing. But I mean, we'll have to see. But my gut tells me Sixers don't get him. But if they do, Austin, I mean, it changes everything.
So let me ask you this then: is that 25% chance you saying that you don't think that he's going to get traded, but if he does get traded, they would be the favorites to get him, or that they would lose him to a different team?
I think they'd be the favorites to get him, because I feel like the Sixers have the most that they can offer the Blazers, in my opinion. Because, I mean, listen, a lot of people, I get it. Ben Simmons he doesn't shoot jump shots. He's an awful free throw shooter and everything else. Ben Simmons is still a top 25 player. Austin, in my opinion, I feel like he still is. I know it keeps going backward. But Ben Simmons to me is still one of the more talented players in this league. I mean, at 25 years old, 3-time All-Star, All-NBA third-team member in 2020, All-Defensive first-team member 2 years in a row. There isn't a lot that he can't do. It's just the one thing that he can't do. There's such a glaring weakness, especially in today's game with the way it's played and everything. So I feel like if you can build a package around Ben, and listen, I would throw Tyrese Maxey in there. I would throw in a cheesesteak in there. I would throw in whatever you need to bring Damian Lillard to Portland. Anybody outside of Joel Embiid, you can have it. Just bring in Dame Lillard. And also another thing is, Austin, assuming Lillard wants to go to a title contender, out of all those teams, Philadelphia is the one that's most suited to go win a title. Like they're the ones in the best position right now.
I'll tell you this. I really think they're going to trade for him.
Okay.
So number one, yes, the big and a massively important caveat here is, does he want out? Because if he doesn't want out, the Blazers have no incentive to trade him. And if he does want out, I think that's all the Sixers need to know. Here's my thing. I've looked at the teams that have been rumored, and I've pinpointed a commonality. Part of it has been, me looking around and talking to different people, and the part of it is me just looking with a highlighter and saying, like, what do these teams have in common? And it's that they have like a big man that he can theoretically run a very good pick and roll with, and that's the commonality amongst the 4 or 5 teams that have been rumored. And so I think the fit is perfect. Well, basically perfect. I mean, the defensive side of the ball isn't great, but it's still perfect pretty much on the offensive side of the ball. And I think of the 4 or 5 teams rumored, the Sixers can blow away any package that's offered. I don't think he wants to go to Boston, and I think the Blazers would have some concerns about like Jaylen Brown's health if they were him. And I also just don't know like what those, what those picks would look like, or what those peripheral assets would look like. I think the Sixers can checkmate most of the star options, like unless it's Brandon Ingram or unless it's Pascal Siakam, the Sixers might have a problem there. But they have Simmons they can offer. If it's peripheral pieces, they can they can go with Tyrese Maxey, they can go with Matisse Thybulle, they can go with Paul Reed, any of those guys. They have guys with pretty interesting potential, and anytime you can sell, you can say, well, we can give you this guy who we just named to all defense second team. That opens up ears. And I also think that the picks, like the Sixers have a bevy of picks in the future that I think if you look at the teams that are involved in the rumors, if the Blazers are going to bet on somebody to have to undergo a rebuild in the next decade or less, the Sixers are probably the team that's most likely to undergo that rebuild. And so those picks become all the more valuable. So I think on paper, it's the best field of assets that the Blazers can get back. I also think that if Daryl knows, if Daryl Morey knows that he's available, he's already missed Harden. I don't know how close they were with the Lowry talks. I suspect it was more about the money than about the actual assets on the table to acquire Kyle Lowry. But they didn't get Kyle Lowry either, and then they lost because their ball handler forgot how to play basketball. So that's another strike against Daryl Morey. And you can debate about whether it was a personal vendetta that the Rockets didn't trade Harden to Philly, whatever. But he already missed 2. This is the big one. This is the one that he cannot miss, and I think he knows that. And I think for that reason, it would if he's available. My suspicion is that he will be a Sixer.
The thing with Lowry was the Raptors wanted more draft compensation.
Right.
And the Sixers they weren't able to kind of give it up. That was according to Sam Amick over at The Athletic.
Well, I think it was they weren't able to make that up because they weren't willing to pay him that money. The more you give up in the trade, the more leverage the guy has in free agency, right? And so he's going to be holding you over, whatever you want to say, and spanking you across the ass. So I mean, he's going to own you, and they don't want to be in that position, I don't think. And
no, probably not.
I'll tell you this: I don't think they're going to sign Lowry in free agency either, because it would have been more financially responsible and more financially feasible for them to get him at the trade deadline instead of trying to sign him outright in free agency. So I don't think he's going to be a Sixer. But I think it's going to be Lillard, and they'll make some other moves around that. But I don't want to say I'm ultra confident, but I think if Damian Lillard is available, I think he'll be in Philly.
No, listen, I mean, it makes sense because this is Daryl Morey we're talking about. Morey is a guy who we all know is not afraid to pull the trigger on any big deal. I remember the biggest deal for me, Austin, when he was in Houston was outside of the big Westbrook and Paul trade, was when he made that deal for Robert Covington in the middle of the night at the deadline in 2020 and said, "Hey man, I'm going to make you our center." Like I thought that was such a wild move to me.
And if you recall, he then traded him for 2 firsts.
Right.
Portland gave him 2 first-round picks for Robert Covington.
Right. So
oh God, Neil O'Shea was GMing for his job.
He was. He really was. Hey man, you got to love this league. You really do. I love the NBA more than anything.
Would you have traded Covington for 2 firsts?
No, I'm not trading. Actually, I would. I would give up Covington for 2 firsts, but I'm not giving up 2 firsts for Covington. Is what I mean. No.
Right. What was I going to say? I'll tell you this. I think it's either going to happen. The trade for Ben is either going to happen in like the next week, or in the weeks leading up to camp. But the sooner, the deeper you get into the season, I think you're going to keep him. The only thing that kind of has me wondering is because Daryl has taken risks in the past, and in terms of high leverage players, like he traded Rafer Alston, who was starting for the Rockets back in like whatever it was, 07. And he traded him to get Lowry, and it worked out. And that was sort of like his big moment that put him on the map around the NBA,
right?
By all accounts, I should say. And so I think if anyone has good memories of trading a point guard in the middle of the season and having it work, it'd be him. But I just think like show me the last time a team has traded their starting point guard and that won on the win title. Right?
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Yeah. So I think it's gonna either happen now. It's not now or never, but I think it's either gonna happen sooner or it's gonna happen next offseason.